So this was, without question, one of the most emotionally taxing and stressful experiences of my life. Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be a little bit different to what I usually make just because it concerns some things that have happened to me in the last couple of days since I got to the United States, which is where I am currently. I'm in a family member's room, hence the different scenery. So I'm not going to waste any time getting into this video or explaining what happened. Basically, on the 11th of April, I flew into the United States with my friend Avi. We were here for work. We were here to actually do journalism and to report on some news and some things that had happened, which I will give some context to in a second. And basically, when we got into LAX airport, which is the airport in Los Angeles, for anyone who doesn't know, we were both detained by Border Patrol agents or Border Protection agents and the FBI. So for some context to this situation and the reason that we were in the United States and the reason that we came here, for anyone who doesn't know, I will link the video I'm about to reference in the description box so you can watch it. If you haven't already seen it, I suggest doing that before you watch this video. The long and short of it is that there is a comedian called Jim Jeffries, who is an Australian comedian who now resides in the United States and basically has his own show on Comedy Central. Jim Jeffries produced a segment or a part of his show that involved Avi. And basically what he did was he filmed this months and months and months ago with Avi. I actually remember Avi calling me and saying that he was going to Singapore to film with Jim Jeffries. And what the producers did and what Jim Jeffries did is they took what they'd filmed with Avi, they cut up the segment, they made him look like utterly ridiculous, really, and then they put that out to the public. And Avi basically responded to it. And what he'd actually done was he filmed all of the interview. He filmed the entire thing on his 2 mobile phones, and then he released the actual real footage of what the real interview was like and what he really said during the interview. And then he put that out to the public, and here we are. So basically, the really important thing that needs to be noted here is Jim Jeffries and Comedy Central have not responded once to what happened, to what they did to Avi, to what they said, to their dishonesty and their dishonest media practices. They haven't talked about it. This hasn't made its way into the mainstream media. No one seems to care about the fact that someone actually caught them in their lie and actually recorded them while they were lying. So that all being said, fast forward to us getting to the United States. Now, for those of you who haven't followed me for very long, or for those of you who aren't aware, I am a dual American-Australian citizen, hence my accent. And when Avi and I actually arrived at LAX, I said to him, I'm going to go through the part where I basically get into the country as a US citizen because I had my American passport with me. Avi, on the other hand, went to the area where non-US citizens go through. And they're basically at 2 separate parts if you've not been to LAX before. So basically what happened was I scanned through my passport and you get this like printout thing, and it basically had a big cross on it. And so I had to go then to talk to a border agent who said, well, you need to be interviewed and questioned further by other border agents. And at this point, I'm having heart palpitations because I'm thinking, I don't know what I've done wrong. I don't know why this is happening. I had no idea where Avi was either at this point. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be the one who stuffs up this entire trip because I'm the one who's being detained. So basically what happened was this border agent came and she got me. And to be fair, she was very nice to me, although I believe that that's probably a tactic that they use in order to make you feel more comfortable and have you give them more information. So now in retrospect, I understand, at least as far as I'm concerned, I believe the reason that they ended up letting me go, which I'll get to in a bit, is because I am an American citizen, because they have to. But I believe that originally when they pulled me up and when these agents and FBI agents grabbed me and were talking to me, they actually had the intention of also deporting me as well. So let me get to all of that. So at this point, I am with this agent and she says to me, the reason that I pulled you aside is because I saw that you always come into the US on your Australian passport and all of a sudden you've scanned in with your American passport. The reason for that, just for anyone who wants to know, is because I hadn't actually renewed my American passport until recently. So the reason I always travel on my Australian one is because that's always been the one that's been the most relevant to whatever I was doing. I just never actually had an American passport that was valid up until the last year. So there is that. So she takes me down into this area. She proceeds to search my bags. She asks me a bunch of questions about being an American citizen and explains that she thought that me having 2 passports and basically signing in with one and leaving countries and whatever with the other is a bit bizarre, and it sort of flags something in her system. And obviously now that I'm thinking about it in retrospect and I've had a couple days to really consider it, it kind of seems ridiculous because let's be fair, she's not sitting there scanning every single person who comes through and going, that's weird, that person flew out on their Australian passport and have come in with their American passport. That's weird, because in the split second that you're scanning through your passport, no one's going to suddenly flag you and have enough of that time to think about it and go, this is weird, and then give you a big cross on the piece of paper that you have that requires you to basically get out of customs. So I don't believe that that's why they pulled me aside. I now 100% think that they were always going to grab Avi and me. They were just surprised that they couldn't get us together because obviously I came in on my US passport. So after my bags had been searched, after this woman had asked me a bunch of questions basically relating to where we were going in the US, what we were doing, where we were staying, and so on and so forth. And mind you, I'm just trying to answer the questions as best I can because up until this point, I haven't really twigged that this is odd and that maybe I shouldn't be questioned and having my things searched for absolutely no reason. And so this border agent says to me, well, I'm just going to go away and basically have a look into you. I just need more information about this. She asked me what I do. I explained that I'm a journalist. She asked me other questions about who I was traveling with, and I explained that I was with Avi and explained that he's also a dual citizen. He's Israeli and he's Australian. And she said, yeah, okay, great. I'm going to go do some more research. So she leaves, and then I'm just left there. And I'm just sitting in this weird area for 45 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I'm not sure. I wasn't counting. But they did basically detain me at about 6:30 in the morning. Our plane got in at 6. I was detained by 6:30. At this point as well, I have other border agents coming up to me telling me I can't take photos of anything because I actually was. I was going to take photos and then post about it on Instagram just to basically tell everyone what was going on. There's no reception anyway, so I couldn't contact Ivy, I couldn't text him. So at this point, they've taken my passports from me, they've left me in this space by myself, and I'm just sitting there. No idea what's going on, no idea what's happening, getting more and more distressed because I'm thinking, I'm going to be the reason that we miss our next flight, which was at 10 o'clock. I'm going to be the reason that I've stuffed up this trip. I've done this because at the time I had no idea that Avi was also basically in detention / custody / whatever you want to call it as well. I didn't know that he had also been detained as soon as he scanned through his passport. So for me, it was incredibly stressful at that point too. I honestly felt like I just wanted to cry the whole time because you have no idea what's going on and no one will tell you anything, and these people are incredibly officious. I was lucky because the girl who was dealing with me was very, very kind, but they're not always like that. And in fact, I think border protection in America make a point of being incredibly rude to you. So at this point, I'm distressed, I'm feeling sick because I had no idea what was going on, and I didn't know where Avi was. Eventually, when the agent came back and spoke to me, she basically said that she'd Googled us or looked us up online, and she said, yeah, I can see that you're a journalist. And then the line of questioning changed, and it suddenly stopped being about why are you here, where are you going, haha, let's have a casual conversation, and she says, the FBI needs to speak to you. Which was absurd because I'm thinking, I don't know what I've done. And I didn't know that it was, I wasn't aware that Avi was also going through all of this as well, which I'll explain what happened to him in a second. But for me, having 2 agents come up to me from the FBI, hold up their thing, like in the movie it says FBI on their little card thing, was one of the most disconcerting and bizarre moments for me. And then they start a line of questioning about, again, what we're doing, where we're going. And then they start specifically asking me about Jim Jeffries. Why are you going to Baltimore? Why are you going to the Jim Jeffries show? What's Comedy Central got to do with all of this? And it was at that point that I'm thinking, you know what, this is actually not about me being a dual citizen with 2 passports. This is about something else entirely. I'm answering their questions. I'm telling them to the best of my ability what we're doing because I have nothing to hide. Mind you, when they were talking to me, they sort of flagged the fact that I didn't have to answer any questions because, if I didn't want to incriminate myself, then I didn't have to say anything. And I'm thinking, well, we're not doing anything wrong, so why on earth would I incriminate myself? But I definitely felt like the name of the game changed when they worked out that I was a US citizen and they started treating me differently. I feel like that's when they were like, hey, maybe we can't actually keep her and treat her the way that we were planning on treating her. So I'm answering their questions. they're asking me if we're going to get firearms, if we're going to obtain weapons, if we're going to be violent. And the answer, of course, was no, because never once have I indicated that violence is acceptable. In fact, if you followed me for any length of time, you'll know that I'm very anti-violence. I think that that is not the way to solve political issues, and that's not the way to promote discourse and have discussion. And Avi as well, you know, he's a firebrand, sure, but like, he has absolutely never, ever, ever indicated that violence is the way to go. He's never incited violence. He's never encouraged it. In fact, it's the same thing with him where he has said it's not the answer. At this point too, they also told me that they had Avi as well and that he was also detained and being questioned as well. And I'm not sure if Avi and I were spoken to by the same agents, but basically, again, you know, they were really nice to me and I answered all their questions. They seemed satisfied with that. They made a lot of notes. They thanked us, you know, I've come to find out that they thanked Avi as well, but they thanked us for our cooperation, and they said that they're going to be making a full report about it. And I was just upset because to be held for 2 hours, to be asked all these questions, have absolutely no concept of why it was happening, for me was really hard. At least Avi was able to be told straight up. One of the first things that the FBI told him was that Comedy Central had made complaints and were concerned about their safety and thought that Avi was going to be violent, and I guess by extension both of us were going to be violent, which again was never going to be the case. But I didn't know any of that. I had absolutely no context. I had no information. I didn't know what was going on. And so for me, the entire situation was just so distressing, because when you're not sure where your friend is, when you think that you're going to be the reason that you miss a bunch of flights, and when you think that everything is sort of falling apart around you because of you, because you're the person who used 2 passports when you shouldn't have, and then suddenly you realize that maybe it's not about that, it's a lot of stress, and it's very upsetting. After about 2 hours, they let me go. And I asked if I could stay around in the area and make sure that Avi could come with me. And so I stayed around and sort of talked to the agents for a little while. And again, they were all very nice to me, but they wouldn't let me stay. They wouldn't let me wait around for him. And they said, he'll be with you shortly. He just needs to fill out some additional paperwork. So I thought, well, okay then. And they told me that I should go to my gate. So I went to the terminal that we were flying out of, because like I said, we had another flight at 10 o'clock. At this point, it's about 8:30. And so I walk up, I check us in. I don't give my bags to the airline or anything like that because I wasn't sure what was going on. And then I waited. And I waited and I waited and I waited. And after about 3 hours of waiting, and after we missed our first flight, that was when I realized that something was very wrong. And so not knowing what to do, not knowing again what was happening, and now I'm starting to get to that point where I'm starting to legitimately stress. I started trying to talk to basically anyone who was around me. I tried talking to the airline, I tried talking to TSA agents, I tried saying, I need help, I need to understand what's going on because I don't know where my friend is, I don't know anything. I need to talk to someone from Border Protection, I need help. No one would help. In fact, if anything, everyone was incredibly uncooperative. I tried calling the FBI, believe it or not. One of the gentlemen who actually spoke to me from the FBI told me his name, told me to call up if I had any issues. I tried to do so. I couldn't get through to anyone. No one would talk to me. They kept saying they don't know what was going on. I'm calling friends that Avi and I have in the United States who also work in politics, trying to get some help, trying to get some answers. No one knows anything. No one will help us. So at this point, I am overwhelmingly stressed out. So I walk back over to the international area. Mind you, I'm lugging like 3 bags with me, you know, and I'm walking back and forth trying to find someone that can help. I go over to the border protection area. Before that, I'd actually spoken to someone who just worked at the airport in one of the information centers, and they said, no, you have to go and speak to specifically border protection. So I go up to the area where border protection is in the international section of the LAX airport. And I say to this man behind the counter, I was like, I don't know if you can help me, but my friend's basically been detained and I don't know what's going on. And at this point, I think because I just spent 15 hours on an airplane, and now I've been in LAX for, maybe 5 hours, so I'm exhausted. I haven't slept. I'm jet lagged. I feel disgusting. I'm stressed out. I'm emotionally vulnerable. I have no idea what's going on. And so I just lost it. I just could not contain how emotional I was feeling anymore. And for anyone who knows me personally, that's a big deal. I'm not really a crier, but it was just this pressure cooker of emotions, and the situation was just so excessive and insane to me, I just started to cry. And this border agent couldn't have cared less. To him, it was just, you know, another day at the office seeing some poor 20-something-year-old bawling her eyes out. And all I wanted to know was, where is Avi? Is Avi safe? What's happening to Avi? Is Avi being sent back to Australia? And he just kept saying to me, I can't tell you anything. I don't have any information for you. And then what made me so angry was he told me, basically my two options were, I can go and get my next flight, or I can wait around and see if they let my friend out. That was his advice to me. He wouldn't help me. He was incredibly rude to me. He had absolutely no empathy. And look, I get it. Border protection's hard. You're probably dealing with a lot of really not savvy, okay people. You're probably dealing with criminals, and I get it. I understand that their job is incredibly important, but we're not criminals. And I don't know why Avi was being treated as a criminal. I don't know why I was being treated as a criminal. And I don't know why we were being handled in this way. And I understand, you know, there comes a point where you have to see as an individual that, you know, these people can't pick and choose who they're nice to. But there's like this level of humanness that in a way I feel like needs to be expressed in a situation like this. And this is bizarre, me saying this, because if I hadn't gone through this personally, I might not have this opinion. But at that point, I just needed this person to be a human being to me and not be so rigid and horrible and make it worse. I needed him to be a human, and obviously he couldn't do that. So that's a whole issue unto itself. But he kept saying, you know, I can't tell you anything. And then he said, you know, Avi gets one phone call basically. And if the phone call is not to you, then you will not be notified if he is sent back to Australia. And it was at that point that I just thought, okay, this has just reached another level of stupid and another level of crazy. And so the other thing that he said was, if Avi is sent back to Australia, if Avi does not come out of the detention, custody, detainment area, whatever you want to call it, within 8 hours, he's without question being sent back to Australia. It had been 5 hours at this point. So I think it was at this point as well that I knew that he probably wasn't coming out and that I was alone in LAX, no idea what to do, no idea how to proceed. And that was the thing, like the no answers I think was the most distressing part, because Avi knew that he was likely not getting out. And I think that for him, for both of us in different ways, we were so concerned about the other person because we couldn't do anything until we knew what was going on with the other person. And so Avi told me when he got back to Australia, he called me and he said that he kept asking the border agents, he kept saying, you need to tell Sydney what's going on. Does she know what's going on? Have you told her what's going on? And they kept saying, yeah, she knows. Yeah, we've told her. She understands what's happening. I had no idea. No one told me anything. I couldn't get answers. And so for me, the not knowing was almost worse than the whole concept of what was going on, because if they just said, look, your friend is being sent home, at least then I probably could have worked out what to do, but I had no answers and it was debilitating. So I walk back over to the domestic area of LAX and I call my cousin, because most of my family lives in the United States. I call one of my cousins who I'm very close with, and I just cried on the phone and I told her I didn't know what to do. And I called a bunch of Avi and my mutual friends at that point too as well, to explain to them what was happening and just sort of give them a heads up. And at that point I booked another ticket to where I'm at now, and that was it. He wasn't coming out. It's about 3 o'clock now, and like I said, our flight got in at about 6 a.m. And at this point, it's been a very long time. I haven't seen Avi, haven't spoken to him. All I know is vaguely, possibly, probably, that he's being sent back to Australia. And I finally get a phone call from him. And we didn't have long to speak. We actually spoke for only about 3 minutes. And during that phone call, he did say that he was being sent back home. He didn't really explain a whole lot to me because he just didn't have the time to do so, but he made sure I was safe. I made sure that he was safe. He made sure that I had somewhere to go and that I had worked out a new plan, which I had. And basically the only words that came out of his mouth were, "This is Comedy Central's fault." As it turns out, and for anyone who wants to watch Avi's video, I'll link that in the description box as well. Comedy Central basically had made complaints to the FBI saying that they were concerned about their safety, like I mentioned. The FBI also brought up the fact that Avi is an ex-IDF soldier, so he used to be part of the Israeli Defense Force, and they basically brought up the fact that he has like a photo with guns, and it was just ridiculous. Avi's video explains this much better than I probably could, so like I said, I'll link that so you can have a watch of it. So I'm sitting there, we're having this conversation, and all I care about is that he's safe, is that, you know, he will be going back to Australia and he'll be getting there and it's all going to be fine. Because, like I said, the not knowing was part of the worst of this for me. So we're talking, he says, I've got to go. He explains to me that he's basically been in a boring white room all day with illegal immigrants who, you know, are talking about how much they hate America and how much they hate Donald Trump. And he said that he hadn't been fed all day, that the only thing he'd had to eat in 15 hours was a sandwich. And mind you, let's just be clear about this for a second. We flew in for 15 hours on an airplane. Then Avi sat in detention for 15 hours. Thankfully, I was only, you know, being questioned and basically detained for 2 hours. But then I spent the rest of the time being super incredibly stressed out, trying to work out what was happening and crying and whatever. And then, you know, he has to go back on another plane. That's another 15-hour plane ride home. So his time, obviously, waiting and sitting around was horrible. It was horrible for us for different reasons. And all I wanted to know was that he was safe. The thing that I want to make very clear about this is that I don't blame border protection. And I don't blame the way that America deals with its border situation. Do I think it's a little ironic that it's, you know, obviously easier to get into America by just like hopping over the southern border? Sure, I think it's ridiculous. But the reality is I understand to an extent why they behave like they do and why they do this. Because let's be fair for a second. If Avi or I was in some alternate universe actually dangerous and the FBI had let us get into the country and we'd done something, people would be ropeable. So in a way, perhaps they think it's better to be safe than sorry. And that's fair enough. I understand that to a degree. And I know that when things have happened, when terror attacks and things have happened in Australia and America, the first thing that I've thought is that where on earth is border protection? Where on earth are the FBI? Where on earth are these agencies who are meant to keep us safe? So I understand that they're just doing their job. But on this front, the thing that was so disconcerting for Avi and for me is the fact that a left-wing media organization had the ability to say to the FBI or to whoever, to these agencies, these people are dangerous, and therefore you need to investigate. And therefore you need to, and that was enough to have us detained and questioned at the border getting into this country. To me, that is insane, because where do you draw the line? At what point do you say, you know what, this is not a credible threat? Which, mind you, the FBI determined that neither Avi nor I were a credible threat. In fact, the Border Patrol agent who was dealing with me, she said to me very early on, she said, I knew, you know, after 5 minutes of talking to you that you're not a threat, you're not going to do anything. And I'm thinking to myself, of course I'm not a threat. I'm not here to be a threat. I'm here to do journalism. I'm here to investigate. I'm here to interview people. I'm here to have conversations. I'm here to help my friend conduct interviews. I'm here to film. Why on earth would either of us in any context be a threat when at no point in the past have either of us ever done anything threatening? I don't know what they thought was going to happen, because again, this is not something that we'd ever said was going to turn into anything violent or aggressive or anything like that. Even the way that we were talking about it was almost sort of in this, we want to get the facts, we want to get the news. But the reality is that you can't have Comedy Central, just in this context, shutting down the situation. Because like I said, they haven't responded to any criticism online. They've been deleting everything. They've been blocking people. They've basically pretended like this didn't happen. Jeffries hasn't responded to anything. They legitimately defamed Avi. They deceived the public. They created actual fake news. They created actual fake media. And somehow, when we decided to come to the United States to investigate further, we're the ones who get detained. In the end, I think that the way that we were treated was excessive. And I know now, retrospectively and in hindsight, that I was treated a particular way because I happen to be an American citizen, but it is absolutely not outside the realm of possibility that I too would have been sent back to Australia for any reason possible if I hadn't have been. I firmly believe that this sets a precedent where other media organizations, people, personalities, whoever, can simply say that they're concerned about their safety, or they feel like a journalist or a writer or whoever is going to be a threat, and then have that person investigated, detained, and harassed at the border. So in the end, I would love to see a story like this actually make its way into the mainstream media here in the United States, because I think it's incredibly important. And again, like I said, in a way, I feel like Americans sometimes can live in the I have the rights bubble, but they don't realize that we don't have those rights when you're not from this country. So the fact that any left-wing organization or any organization in any capacity has the ability to say that they feel threatened and then have people detained and sent home is ridiculous, especially when there's no credible threat, which there wasn't in this case. So that's what happened to me at LAX airport. I am now in America. I'm going to be here until I was supposed to fly home anyway. So I'm hoping things can happen while I'm here. I'm hoping this doesn't get derailed too much. And again, thank you so much for your love and support, because it really does mean so much to me. And I know it means a lot to Avi. And I'm going to keep you guys up to date with what's going on, especially if you're invested in this. And, you know, as always, if you want to find out what's happening, I post a lot on Instagram and on Twitter, because Facebook's blocked me, which is great. So I'll try to keep you guys updated as much as I can. And, you know, send an email to Comedy Central if you feel so inclined to do so. Obviously, never be rude and do not be horrible to them, but, you know, you can express your displeasure if you want to. And, you know, from me and from Avi, we're just really thankful to have so many awesome people behind us, because it means a lot. So yes, as always, if you like the video, hit subscribe and the thumbs up button. If you want to leave a comment, feel free to do so. Just don't be rude about it. And I will see you guys next time, hopefully when I'm not so jet lagged, and hopefully when I have some better news and a less distressing story to tell. So yes, be safe everyone, and I'll see you next time.